G'day YouTube, warbles on a lot here. About to go for a bike ride. Whoops, I spoke too loud. I'm going to attempt something rather difficult for me. I'm going to try to speak softly so as not to overdrive the microphone by using my normal speaking voice, let alone the slightly louder tone which I have become used to when trying to make videos on the motorbike. Today's about day 3 of a heatwave. 34 degrees here in the clearing. Okay, well, that should be now recording. And if I can remember to keep my voice soft, then maybe the microphone won't get overblown. However, the big worry is that my spoken voice plus the road noise may be too much for the microphone. But nothing ventured, nothing gained. So, about 20 to 6. Wednesday, 22nd of October. Seeing as I'm on the motorbike, I suppose this should probably be episode 24 of the Trumpocalypse Chronicles. Because it's been a while since I had a go at a Trumpocalypse video. And a lot's gone on. It's become ever more apparent that the Trump regime is being driven by Russell Vought, whatever you want to call him, and Stephen Miller. And Russell Vought, he's a species of self-proclaimed right-wing Christian nationalist. Who's apparently grown up. In a culture where he's been taught that the United States has always been a white Christian nation. Which is just not true. He's pursuing a goal which he was indoctrinated in, marinated in by his parents and grandparents, school teachers, church leaders. he wrote Project 2025. He wrote it during Trump's first administration, and he runs the Office of Budget Management for the White House. And anything which he's convinced himself is against his brand of Christianity, which, from what I know, having attended 2 Catholic boarding schools as a lapsed Presbyterian, so most of what I know of Christianity is based on the observations of the difference between what their theology teaches them to believe and what they profess to believe and what they actually behave like. So Russell Vogt somehow reconciles his desire not to pay tax with everything Jesus said in the Beatitudes, everything that's in the 10 Commandments, to say nothing of the parable of the Good Samaritan. But he thinks he's a Christian. Somehow we're maintaining an average of 49 watt-hours per kilometre and we're doing 66 kilometres an hour. I'm not quite certain how I'm managing that. Because we've got a fair headwind too. So anyway, then we have Stephen Miller, 41-year-old, interesting sort of a person. He grew up in a prosperous Jewish family, living in a fairly expensive house in a fairly expensive neighbourhood, and in about 1998, in the global financial crisis, his father lost a lot of money, and Stephen Miller stopped going to a wealthy white family's school where he was just another white rich kid to live in a much less expensive house and attend a school where most of the kids were Hispanics. And I think he was about 13 or something when Daddy went rogue. So he's reported to have developed the concept that Hispanics were not really Americans, no matter how long they'd lived there or what naturalisation processes, paperwork they'd done. And I'm guessing that what he returned from the Hispanic kids that he tried to lord it over, telling them that they weren't really Americans, they probably told him that being as he was Jewish, he wasn't actually a white American either. Because as much as Stephen Miller wants to proclaim his white nationalism, pretty much everybody who supports white nationalism in America and Australia and Britain and France, they're all anti-Semitic. If you've been paying attention to the leaked emails from the quote young Republicans who are aged 18 to 42, might be 44, 26,000 messages among themselves telling each other how much they admired Adolf Little Whiskers, advocating for gas chambers for anybody who voted against them, suggesting they could quite enjoy watching people burn, admitting to having a bit of a Nazi streak in their personalities. None of those people, not the Klansmen, not the neo-Nazis, none of them admire or look up to Stephen Miller. But Stephen Miller runs ICE, and ICE is 45 times the size that the FBI used to be. ICE is bigger than the US Marines. And the way the militarisation of law enforcement in the US has been going, I would not be at all surprised if the President decrees that at the upcoming 2026 mid-term elections, he's going to put ICE either outside or perhaps inside all the polling places on the pretext that they're preventing riots or the perception of the threat of riots, or because they're going to be looking for undocumented aliens trying to vote. And because that's what they're looking for, they're going to intercept and intimidate anybody who looks brown or Hispanic, perhaps Asian, anyone who speaks with any kind of an accent, and they will be intimidated out of voting. This is in a nation where, for the past 3 weeks, a Democratic senator from, I think, Arizona, might be Texas, won the election, went to Washington, and they won't swear her in. Because if she's sworn in, she'll vote against the Republicans in something that they don't want to be voted against. At the No Kings rally, something like 7 million people showed up. And apparently, according to political scientists, you need 3% of a population to be prepared to demonstrate on the streets before the government is forced to pay attention. 7 million people is only about 1.5% of the Americans. They needed 12 million, and they only got 7. So, meanwhile, I think 27 or 29 people have been killed by acts of international piracy, drone strikes in the Caribbean, off the coast of Venezuela. The Admiral, who was in charge of the US Navy for the, pretty sure, the South Atlantic and all the South American countries, 1 year into a 3-year appointment, he's quit. Because he can't square the Constitution and what they taught him at Annapolis, or Patuxent River, because he was a helicopter pilot. He can't square what he learnt, what he spent 37 years as a professional military officer practicing with the orders that he's being given from the Pentagon. Don't like to be pessimistic, but I think it might be very difficult to envisage the Republicans and the Trumpists backing down or backing off or accepting a vote that goes against them or even allowing free and fair elections. Just setting the regenerative braking. Wow. We only used 22% of a battery, 23% of a battery, and we did that whole run at 48 watt hours per kilometre. Chrissy's riding very smoothly in his old age. Which is handy, because it would be nice to live long enough to have an old age. And failing to ride smoothly is a good way to not live long. I suppose I could expand on that a fair bit, but I think I'll wait till after tomorrow. In the meantime, Trump posted an AI video of himself flying a fighter plane wearing a golden crown, dropping shitballs over the No Kings rally. Which is one of the more truthful public notices he's ever put out, in my opinion. 7 million people demonstrating in support of the sentiment, no kings. And he shits on them from a great height. I think if you go back and have a look at the Trumpocalypse Chronicle video I made on Christmas Day, and you check off everything I said then and compare it to everything that's happened in the 10 months, 11 months since, I wasn't far wrong. It's kind of unstoppable. And with Palantir by Peter Thiel looking at everything that goes through the internet and the telecommunication system, it's going to be very difficult for the old school military to mount a counter coup unless they go back to carrier pigeons. But, you know, we'll see what we see. 16 kilometres, 61.39 total. Took 19 minutes from my front gate. Average speed of 50. Max of 73, 46 watt hours per kilometre, and we're on 77%. I'm pretty pleased with that.